money in the pension funds. You've stolen all the money in the government. And now, rather than turn and tell people, well, we stole your money, you need an excuse that will allow you to consolidate and change the fundamental system. And so you have a magic virus.
Crypto bros make money literally by making money, and they've made over $1 trillion out of thin air. They'll accuse the U.S. government of making money out of thin air. Maybe we do, but we're the U.S. government. Maybe we do, but we're the U.S. government.
Well, that makes everything all right, because they're the U.S. government. You just can't make this stuff up anymore. So welcome back on a Tuesday. And you know what this means, because I always love his visits to the show, and he's a fan favorite. And of course, you got to go get the book Quaz. It's a fantastic read. And I have Mel Mattison, melmattison.com. How are you, Mel?
I am doing great, and thanks for having me, Kate.
You got it. Okay, so you haven't been on for a couple of weeks. So give me your latest, because I know that there's been jumps in the stock market. There's been all kinds of stuff going on. I just want to get the lowdown from my friend Mel. So you got to do this. Oh, by the way, can you give people like a little bit of background too, if they're new to the show?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Mel. I've been coming on the show with Kate for over a year now.
Yeah.
I love coming on because unlike a lot of places, she's not expecting me to take one position or another on a party or a candidate or a president. So, you know, I've got good things to say about the Trump administration. I've got bad things to say about the Trump administration. So
right.
That's fabulous. My background is in business. It's in financial services. I have an MBA from Duke University. I've spent over 25 years in financial services. I have served as the CEO of 3 different SEC and FINRA regulated broker dealers. And at the ripe young age of 50, which I am right now, I manage investments in kind of real estate, precious metals, equities, different things. And I'm an author. And as Kate mentioned, I've written the book Quaz. So I've gone through these things, and I've seen these markets before. I've seen the dot-com bubble, which blew up right as I was graduating from college in the late 90s, been through the great financial crisis, been through COVID, been through all of these. And I go through all of these things, and I bring that experience and what I've seen to the table to try to help guide people. And just, you know, really quickly for folks, basically I came on with Kate in December, January, and for the first time in about 2 years, I said, you know what, I'm a little worried about the stock market. I think it's time to take profits. Build up some cash, because there's going to be a big opportunity later in the year. And then literally, like after Trump walked back the tariffs, April 10th, I was like plugging all that money into the market. And I'm like, that's a bottom, get in. It's up 20% since then. So basically, like all my accounts are up big on the year. And, you know, I'm trying to just help people that manage stocks. If they don't manage stocks, that's fine. I also talk about larger economic issues, central banks, different things. As I said last week, a caller called in and said, Mel, why do you talk about stocks? I said, just because a lot of people own it. You don't need to own stocks. I'm not here to be Larry Fink and tell people they need to own stocks. You know, I just think the stock market is part of a lot of people's lives and financial lives. And I look at everything from real estate, precious metals, everything, and try to give my views on those.
All right. Well, I can't wait to kind of hear everything else that you've got to. I know you've got a lot to talk about. And so where do we really land today? The stock market's up, and where do you want to start? We could start even with the tax bill, whichever. Where do you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think the stock market is up, and it's going to keep going up. And I think it's going to go to new all-time highs, and it's going to go to 7,000 on the S&P by the end of the year, and it's going to go to 8,000 by the and here's the reason why. It's not because I sit around and listen to a bunch of earnings calls like what is Apple doing.
Right.
What I do every week, and just yesterday, the monthly Treasury statement came out, which is essentially a multi-page PDF document that the Treasury Department puts out on government spending. And it's absolutely obnoxious. It's ridiculous. Like we are heading for bigger deficits than we would have ever seen had Kamala Harris won. Like people need to understand, like Doge didn't cut anything. I love Trump. He's got good things about him. He's got bad things about him, but literally no tax on tips, no tax on, like the tax cuts are incredible. It's probably going to be passed. And then the spending, the $1 trillion spending on the Defense Department, there's no spending cuts. We are going to spend like crazy. That's going to be capital and money injected into the economy. It's going to juice the stock market. And that's why I'm bullish on the markets. Now, the big problem is what's happening with bonds. And we're seeing it. We're seeing the 30-year Treasury bond start to approach 5%. And we had an inflation report today, which was low, but it's not taking into effect what's going to come down the road. And so we are in this really weird, like Wizard of Oz land where government is just spending like crazy, running deficits like crazy, juicing the economy, juicing the stock market, all the while telling people we're getting things back on track with the deficit, which is absolutely not happening.
Ouch. There's a couple of wins, but like I said yesterday on the show, I briefly mentioned the tax bill. We didn't really go over it, but so I'm glad we're going to do that a little bit more today. But there's just so many things people should know. So a rollback of the ever-arching crazy of the King Dingaling, environmental policies, because it went so far out of whack. The bill terminates or phases out numerous clean energy tax credits, including for residential solar, and hydrogen production. All right, and so we went crazy, and we're arriving now at this new normal. But I don't think we're cutting the roots of the tree, like I said yesterday. It's like little teeny things like the tax on tips. I mean, people are looking at that like, see, we're kicking butt and we're getting rid of the deep state. And I'm like, yeah, that's not that. I don't know what that is, but it's not that. I mean, it's nice. It's just not the root of the tree. So we're not doing the big things, and I'm worried that people are just walking away going, oh yeah, this is going well. And I'm like, 4 trillion, we raised the debt ceiling, 4 trillion. That's not good. It's horrid.
No, we're on pace for. I mean, this is getting ready to go crazy. I honestly think, Kate, we're heading for an equity bubble, the likes of which we haven't seen since 1999. I think there's going to be so much cash sloshing around in the system based on government deficit spending that the stock market is going to just rocket higher, because people are starting to get the picture. All this stuff about Doge. Right. Okay, Elon Musk said we're going to cut 2 trillion. Then it was 1 trillion. Then it became 150 billion, and then he leaves. And now I looked at the actual White House documents on what they call the skinny budget. This is the discretionary spending budget that they send out. I looked at the details. Basically, what was in there was $150 billion in spending cuts, which were completely annihilated by a jump in defense spending to over $1 trillion. And then they made it look like there was $100 billion reduction. But if you looked at the line items, and anybody can go to White House, and I ask you to do this, look at where is that $100 billion deduction coming from? It came from emergency spending, meaning the government spent $120 billion last year on emergency, like hurricanes and things like that. And what they put into the budget was that we're going to spend negative $12 billion. They literally made a negative spending line in the budget. So they are just manipulating the heck out of everything. And what they're going to do, they're going to put sunset provisions on a lot of this stuff so that they can make it, accountable with the CBOE scoring. And what's going to happen is we're going to wind up with the biggest spending budget ever, the biggest deficits ever, and it is going to juice everything. And people are going to be like, oh my gosh, I was worried. I thought like the economy was collapsing and so on. and eventually the piper is going to need to be paid. But like, we're still 2 or 3 years down the road from that. And that's why I tell people, like, stock market's going up, gold is going up, Bitcoin's going up, bond yields are going up, which they are. And this is the path we're headed on, and it's unsustainable. And we're just doing what we've always done, which is put it on the tab.
Wow. Phone lines are open, 888-673-1450. If you have a question for Mel, I'm glad to take your call. 888-673-1450. Would love to hear from you. And, you know, Paul Craig Roberts wrote an article. He's been on my show a couple times, and he writes now. I always catch him on LouRockwell.com, but Lou's been on the show too. But he was talking about the annual theft of $521 billion from the federal government. Can it be stopped? And all these different ways. Are we cutting that kind of root of the tree is what I'm talking about. Are we going after things that sound good as press bites, or are we actually going to stop anything? And it doesn't look that way with this bill. There's little highlights that people will go, well, pharma prices, or, like I mentioned before, the tax, or the no taxation on tips or lower taxation. But those are just such small little things compared to the 4 trillion uptick, right, in the deficit. So we're looking at a lot of major things going on in that bill. And people aren't really talking about it. They're not really going over it. They're skimming it, and they're not really actually talking about it. But there's a couple of things that are not okay with this bill. We'll get into it more for sure. But let me take a quick phone call. Hi, caller. Make it fast.
Mel, what's your take on financial derivatives?
Okay. Financial derivatives. Okay. We're going to come right back, and you can answer that, Mel. Does that sound good? So
Perfect.
We'll be right back. We'll go over some of the meat of that bill too. I just think people should know. And like I said, this isn't about the right or the left. It's about the truth. I'm just so tired of the circus. It's a circus. A media circus. Be right back. Kate Dalley Show, more with the great Mel Mattison. Don't go anywhere.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
And he decides who to free and who to blame.
All right, welcome back, Kate Dalley Show.
Everybody,
I like my Johnny Cash. Welcome back, and brought to you by Canyon Media Studios in St. George, Utah, and they host the show so that all you can listen to it. You can also catch it on Rumble, and you can catch the video version on Rumble. You can also catch it at X America News, where it plays there in the evening, and on X. And you can go to xamericanews.com. Also, I just wanted to mention allfamilypharmacy.com/Kate. And you know why? Because they have ivermectin and fembenzenol. You should be doing parasite cleansing. There's stuff coming at us, 25, 26. And I'm telling you, they're not done with the whole shots program. And today it was some new parasite. I'll get to it in the next hour. Some crazy flesh-eating parasite that they are just convinced you're going to get. So anyway, I'm just telling you, please just get healthy so that you don't even think about taking their garbage that they're going to try to sell to you. I would never take anything for my health that the government wanted me to take. I really wouldn't. I really would not. I would do my homework heavily before I ever made a decision to do anything like that. allfamilypharmacy.com/Kate. And of course, you can use the code Kate10 and get 10% off, which makes it nice. And they come right to your door and their doctor scripts. That's pretty cool. All right, Mel Mattison. First off, we kind of need to go to the heart of this. We'll go to the heart of the tax bill in just a moment. Who controls the money?
Yeah. I think this is the biggest point. It's something we've talked about, going back to our first show, is that the politicians, whether it's Xi Jinping or Donald J. Trump, they're not really in charge. And I think that's pretty apparent, right? I think Trump had an idea of what he wanted to do a month or two ago, and he was put in his place. He was put in his place by the bond market, by the stock market, and he was told, no, don't go there. It's a no-go zone. And I think what's happening is whatever, and Xi Jinping probably was put in the same place. And that's probably why there was a bit of a China deal that came together this weekend, is Xi is not as beloved as a lot of people think. China is a very bifurcated nation where there is a group of people in the cities, and it's not a small group, it's 200 million people. But this is a country of 1 billion people. And the other 800 million Chinese, they live hand to mouth, they live rurally, and they're not very happy with Xi Jinping. They were not happy with the way he handled COVID and the lockdowns. And he is in a very weak position. So I'm not here to say like Trump is weak or this. What I'm here to say is that these leaders are not as powerful as people think. And while Xi wanted to be tough and Trump wanted to be tough, at the end of the day, the bond market, the stock market, the international banking cabal, who really runs the show, put them in their place and said, you guys are going to go meet in, and guess where? Switzerland. I mean, which is the location of the Bank for International Settlements, the central bank of like this is the banking hub. Like the irony cannot be lost on people that essentially this is the same place, the only country in Europe that Hitler refused to invade because it was too important, because it moved the money. So like literally it's so apropos that in Switzerland, the two quote unquote most powerful men in the world, or their representatives thereof, had to come together and make peace because the bankers said enough is enough.
It's I kind of envision it sometimes as like a movie. If you're watching a movie and the sole focus is in this house, and you think that this is the biggest house because they've told you this is the biggest house, and they pan around the house, and you think you're watching this movie about this house. And then as the camera goes on top of the house and starts to pan out, then all of a sudden there's a McMansion behind the house. And you realize that what you thought was a mansion, the big house, is actually the maid's quarters. And the big house is in the back. And you start to kind of get the context of what you're seeing. And as the camera pans up and up and up into the sky, you see it that it's a speck. And this is our problem with how the media and how the government tells us that our government is portrayed to us, right? When you're talking about the big McMansion in the back, you're going, hey, the money is controlled way back here, but the camera's only going to show you this part because they want you to think this is the biggest thing and that we're going to stop everything here, and we're not. And so we've got to go over the roots of we got to take out the root of the system, and the root of the system would be the BIS. The root of the system is the World Bank. The root of the system happens to be overseas over there. Be right back. I'll get your thoughts. Be right back. Kate Dalley Show. More with Mel Mattison.
Well, hello everybody. It's Annie Cyrus. Welcome to my art studio where all the magic happens. This is the station for painting, and that is the station for all the resin art I do. If you want to check out my art, all you gotta do is go to lutfstudio.com. Finish this late, but I'm sure, or at least I hope, I'll see you at lutfthestudio.com.
I'm born in summertime.
All right, welcome back. Kate Dalley Show. I've got Mel Mattison on board. Catherine Austin Fitz will be joining the show, I think, in about 30 days. And it'll be interesting to have her on again. She's been on a few times, and we've been playing some clips of hers. And so just kind of letting you know, I'm also working on some other guests like Lara Logan coming back on, and some various people that I'll let you know about. I have Mel Mattison. The book is Quaz. Go to melmattison.com. Follow him on X. And he's always doing updates over there. And I really love that. And so you were actually perusing an article that you were just talking about on the break. Did you want to bring that up? Going back 100 years? Or
yeah,
less?
well, I was just looking through things, like I said, this week. So every month, the United States Treasury releases something called the monthly Treasury Statement. If anyone's really interested, I'd encourage them to just search U.S. Treasury monthly Treasury Statement and look at it. And it details all of the spending. It shows all the departments and the deficits and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at, when I talk about, and I say, I don't spend a lot of time when I'm analyzing the stock market, I don't spend a lot of time looking at, like, what did Microsoft do in the last quarter? I spend a lot of time looking at what's the U.S. government spending, what are they pumping into the economy? And looking back over less than 100 years, really, if you go back to, let's say, pre-FDR, who was the first kind of quasi-socialist president, federal government spending as a percent of GDP was about 3%. And right now, we have a GDP as a country of around $32 trillion, and we're going to be spending, the federal government, somewhere around 7 to 8 trillion, which means we've gone from a 3% of GDP federal spending to 25%. And this is what drives the American economy. So when I say, oh, look at this spending bill, look at how the taxes are cut, the spending's increased, stock market's going to go up. It's not rocket science.
Right.
This is money that's just going to be thrown into the system. It's going to slosh around, and it's got to find a home. And part of that home is going to be in equities, and the stocks are going to go up. And that's what's been happening.
Right. People wanted to know too, about the IRS and about abolishing that. Now, Trump says, I want to abolish the IRS. Everybody cheers. Okay. That's a great thing to cheer about. You and I would all agree, right? Great thing. But we have to look at actually what's happened. He's cut a little bit of their budget and their workforce, which is good. That's not saying that's bad. That's great. But then what? Where are we headed? And so this is kind of what you were talking about earlier too. It's like, it sounds good. And then a little step is made and everyone goes, see, it's happening. And he says, of course, tariffs will take the place of that. But now we're saddled with both right now until that were to happen, which it doesn't look like it's on track to actually happen. So then we're saddled with both. And all of a sudden we have this bigger problem of being saddled with tariffs and the IRS. And so that's not a huge win for us. Although the idea of tariffs is an interesting one, but it's not okay when we have everything else we're saddled with. So while things sound good, and I want to compliment and I want to go, yes, that sounds great, because you'd never hear that statement out of King Dingaling or Hormala. Okay, they would never utter that statement, but it's just a statement because we're not really doing it. And the tax bill, this new bill coming out, is the same kind of thing, right? There's a couple of things that sound nice, but when you really look at the meat of it, it's not great for us. It's not doing anything to end anything. We're not. In fact, they're terminating the IRS's direct file program. And if people don't know what that is, all that step is to say, okay, some people, you can't really file, wait until October. That's not doing anything. You got the IRS. Like, it actually works against people. So we have to look at what's actually going on instead of the idea of what's going on. Everyone's in love with the idea of what's happening. It's like being in love with the idea of marriage, but then you've got marriage, and marriage is hard, and it's great, but it's hard. And then you look at this, and everyone's just in the honeymoon phase right now still. And I want to say, like, snap out of it and slap them, because it's just, we're still in that phase. Don't you think? It's weird.
Well, I've been with my wife for 20 years and we're still in the honeymoon phase.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay. You're the only one I know in 20 years that's in the honeymoon
I know she's listening, so I had to say that. But no, we've had our struggles. And anybody that's been married for anyone that's been married for 20 years knows they have their struggles, right?
Yeah, or somebody's not being honest. Somebody's being real quiet, as my grandma used to say. She used to say someone's being real silent in a marriage if they say they never have a problem, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. No, but you make a perfect point. And I think here's the point I want to make is that the media loves to put forth this facade as if like Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or Donald Trump have anything to say about it.
Right.
They don't. Like these are decades long phenomenon around deficit increases, around the way the economy has been set up, around the way the international banking cabal has organized things, going back to the days of the Rothschilds. This whole thing about like Fox News versus CNN or MSNBC, it's all a big facade to make people think they've got some sort of control or they're voting for something. Right. Like I knew when Trump got in, he's not going to cut the deficit and balance the budget. There was something I said on like a podcast like a month or two ago when Howard Lutnick was on talking about how he's going to balance the budget. I said, it's a pipe dream. It's not happening. Right. And I was proven right. And people were saying, oh, these tariffs are going to happen and they're going to crash the stock market. And I was on Twitter saying, no, they're not, because these tariffs can't last because they're unsustainable. Yeah. Like this is not, these people are not in control. Right. Donald Trump's not in control. Xi Jinping's not in control. Like we're living in this spinning out of control world based on a monetary and debt system that was originally put into place in 1694 under William III when he created the Bank of England and we began the central banking cartel system. Right. And since that point, when any leader, whether it's Donald Trump, Xi Jinping, whoever you want to name, tries to butt up against it and say, no, I'm going to do X, Y, or Z, guess what? They get put back in their place and they do what the market tells them to do. And that's exactly what happened to Donald Trump. Yes. And if this sounds doom and gloom, it really shouldn't. The reality really shouldn't be doom and gloom. The reality should be, okay, this is where we're at, accept it, and look around and say, okay, what do I need to do to protect myself and my family, number one? What steps should I be making that other people aren't making? A lot of people stopped prepping. They stopped getting ready for things that were coming because they just had so much faith in this honeymoon stage, in this idea of what's happening rather than what's actually happening. And I think that we have to fight stuff. This is such a great reckoning moment to go, okay, both sides are the uniparty and we're the people, and the people far outweigh the uniparty in number. And we could actually do many, many things if given the right perspective and understanding of what's happening to us. But we keep playing the right left game. And we're stuck in this cycle, this hamster wheel, and we're not changing it. And so that's, I think, what gets me the most is we've got to change this. Caller, you've got 25 seconds. Go for it.
Okay. I think we all agree that their ultimate objective is going digital. And the way to get most people to do that is if they fatten us up for the slaughter. If you have much to lose by not going along with this system, then, you know, they don't really have you over a barrel. All right. But if you have a lot of assets, then, you know, most people will go digital along with it.
They want a lot to steal. Thank you for that. Love it. Thank you. Great call. Be right back. I'll have Mel comment on that. Be right back with Mel Mattison on the Kate Dalley Show.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day, and I absolutely love it, and so will you.
All right, welcome back. Kate Dalley Show. You can get a lot of links. There's a link for the nicotine patches, and it helps the show right on the website. Also, you can get the GCMAF, which is cancer fighting, which is amazing. And that is on my website. It comes out of Australia, and I would recommend that to anybody looking at a cancer diagnosis. And also the remineralization of teeth. Get the mouthwash too, and let that sit on your teeth. You guys, we've got to turn that boat around. And a lot of the stuff starts in the mouth. Like 80% of the things start in the mouth. So this would be something really great. It's $20. So go get it. Remineralization powder. Be using that twice a day. You're going to love me for that one. All right, Mel Mattison from melmattison.com. All right, let's talk about a possible prediction that you're going to make.
Well, the last caller asked about a digital future, and I think that is, again, a topic like we've talked about since the beginning is central bank digital currencies. And I think it was probably as much as 8 or 9 months ago, I said they've given up on central bank digital currencies, but what they're going to do is a backdoor central bank digital currency by legitimizing what's called stable coins. So for people that don't know I know a lot of your listeners know exactly what stable coins are. If you don't, they're cryptocurrencies that are exchanged on the blockchain, meaning they can be sent digitally. And what it is you put US dollars into it. The stablecoin company, like a Tether or a Circle, they go and they buy a 1-month treasury bill, like a T-bill. So they buy a United States debt obligation to back that bill. That bill pays currently around 4%, and then they can pay you 4% interest. And so there is a major bill that is not being talked a lot in the mass media, but is very important, I think, to the powers that be. It's called the Genius Act. It is a stablecoin payments act, and it has bipartisan support. So I think it's going to get passed, but there are essentially 10 or 15 U.S. senators on the Democratic side who are for the bill, but they're being told not to vote for it because it will give Trump a win. But I think this is the prediction, is that if I'm right about who's the real power, it's going to overcome the political need to deny Trump a win, and they're going to pass this bill. And at some point in the next 6 months, we're going to see a passing of the Genius Act. It's going to legitimize digital stable coins. And once that happens, you're going to see JP Morgan, Citibank, Wells Fargo, everybody coming out with their own stable coin. And what that's going to do is it's going to tell people, take your money, put it into the stable coins. You can transfer it digitally, so you don't have to pay the Visa 1.5% fee. So you're going to save money. But what's going to back it is you're going to be buying U.S. treasuries, meaning you're going to be buying U.S. debt. And so this is a plan not only to digitize things, control things, see everybody's transactions. It's also a plan as a place to stash U.S. debt, because U.S. debt is just growing astronomically, and they're going to basically be serving it up to the average American consumer through these stable coins. And it's going to take a life of its own. And I think it's probably going to happen. And tons of money is going to flow into stable coins.
Well, if that passes, I just want everybody to remember this moment. Just remember this moment. You have been right. Every time you put a prediction out, you've been right. And I just want to call attention to that. So these are the steps that are being laid right now. And it's like Real ID. There was no reason for Real ID. Because really, if you're saying we need Real ID, then you're saying that the TSA didn't work, Department of Homeland Security is inept. All of these things, all these little mechanisms that they already have in play are totally inept. And so we have to have Real ID. Well, they're not saying that, right? They're saying that we have to have this additional thing. And it's like when you go to pay a bill. You go to pay a bill and they basically want a kidney and your firstborn to get a code through your phone. Then you got to talk to somebody 3 different times and give them your social, and then you can pay a bill. Now I want to know who wants to pay my bills, because I don't think there's a mad rush. But they're acting this way. They're putting in all these steps, right? And everything is going to Face ID and everything's going to this Real ID with no reason whatsoever. There is a reason. So it isn't for what we think it is, because it isn't about terrorists. It's about this. It's about setting all these steps in play for what's coming with digital tyranny. All of it are mechanisms, right? Of that.
Exactly. And I just talked about, well, the budget is huge and the deficits are big. And so what people will say when I say, oh, but the market's going to go up because all of this spending, what they'll say is, no, it's not, because what's going to happen is the 10-year treasury note is going to hit 5%, and that's going to collapse the system. Well, I went back on the monthly treasury statement that came out yesterday, and I saw how many new 10-year treasury notes are being issued. So there are still auctions where they're creating 10-year treasury notes. But all they're doing is replacing the ones that are already in existence. And for people that look at something, it's called the T-back or the Treasury Buying Action Committee. I forget what it exactly stands for. But essentially what's been happening in recent years is the U.S. government used to fund itself by creating 10-year bonds or 10-year notes. They're technically called notes, or 5-year notes, or 30-year bonds. Now they're not doing that anymore. All they're doing is issuing a lot of 3-month T-bills, 1-month T-bills. This is called shortening the curve not to get too financial, but they're just paying everything out of these short-term debt instruments. And so what's going to happen is, yes, interest rates are going to go up, like the 10-year note, but it's not going to collapse the system, because the government isn't using the 10-year note anymore to fund itself. They're using 3-month T-bills, 1-month T-bills, and they're going to fund all of those through things like stablecoins. So the government is finding ways around all the obstacles to this whole debt deficit plan, and they've still got a few rabbits in their hat that they can pull, and that's why I think it continues for another 2 to 3 years. But I do think eventually, and I'm thinking the 2027, 2028 timeframe, that's when it starts, the house of cards starts to fall. And I use that time frame not randomly, but because that is when the Social Security Trust Fund, which was overpaid into for many decades, basically runs dry.
Wow. I'm going to make this into its own little 8-minute podcast, and I hope people share this, because what you just said in that last 5 minutes was vital. It's vital. And I love that you're analyzing the market. That's what this show is for. And to go, okay, this is what I'm seeing. And you know what? It would make sense, wouldn't it? It would make sense that you're looking at that to dictate kind of what we're going to be experiencing with all these well-laid little plans, all these well-laid little things all come, and it'll all come together, and we'll start to see this horrific horror show. I so appreciate you, Mel. Thank you. All right, back with you in just a moment. On the flip side of the break, Mel Mattison, melmattison.com. I'll be right back.
I hear every day about the products you all wish My Pillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard My Pillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use My Pillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
He said one day he walks through the hall down there in the basement and the door's open. And he looked in there, and here's a military man in a military uniform watching about 100 television sets that were on the walls. This is 1968.
Wow.
And the guy says to him, "Hey, come on in. You want to see this?" Well, you don't have somebody who doesn't know anything, who's not connected with the military, come in and watch a military operation. That just doesn't make any sense.
No.
And so my dad looks at these TVs on the wall, and he's like, "What is this? It's just people walking around doing their business, everyday stuff." And he says, "Oh, we have cameras in every single television set that's sold. So when we need to keep an eye on someone, we can just dial into that set." 1968. Now, we know that's happening now with our smart TVs, but back then, okay, I'm probably going to get in a lot of trouble for talking about this.
You know what that reminds me of? Welcome back. I've got Mel Mattison back with me. And of course, phone lines are open. So 888-673-1450 if you're listening in the afternoon. That's an interesting clip because if somebody comes on and let's say they're just a little bit more of the naive political stance, they're going to go, "That's crazy talk." And who, I mean, come on, that's tinfoil hat stuff. Actually, no. And it's been around for a long time. The fact is you guys remember Richard Day, and I exposed those recordings on the air where in 1969, a year after what she's saying her dad witnessed, in 1969, this gentleman went to a conference given by Richard Day, who was a medical practitioner who was with Planned Parenthood and who also gave this speech and said, "These are the well-laid plans for the next 30 years. Really, it's more like 50, but he said, "These are the plans for the next 30 years. And this is what they're going to do." And so one of them, and I want to get Mel's take on this. So this was said clear back in 1969 on Money and Banking. Basically, inflation is infinite. And an indication that, that inflation is a tool of the controllers. Money would become predominantly credit. It was already, money is primarily a credit thing, but exchange of money would not be cash, but electronic credit signals. People would carry money only in small amounts for things like chewing gum and candy bars, just pocket sorts of things. Any purchase of any significant amount would be done electronically. Earnings would be electronically entered into your account. It would be a single banking system. It may have the appearance of being more than one, but ultimately and basically it'd be one system so that when you got paid, your pay would be entered for you into an account balance. And then you would be then you purchased anything at that point of purchase. It would be deducted from your account balance and would actually carry nothing with you at all. And that way they could control if you were buying something of one particular item. That's why we always say prep. Do anything like that now, right? What's your take, Mel? Because I know there's some things you wanted to talk about.
Like inflation being basically part of the plan. And that's the absolute truth. And it's not part of the plan since Nixon went off the gold standard or Lincoln started producing greenbacks in 1860. It goes back to 1790. It goes back to the very beginning. It goes back to Alexander Hamilton, because what happened then was the United States was essentially the world's first democracy. It needed to raise tax revenues. And it said, okay, how do we raise tax revenues? And they're like, well, let's tax something that people don't need, but they like, whiskey. Right. So we put on a big tax on whiskey. Right. And guess what happened? The Whiskey Rebellion. It was the first uprising. And Hamilton and George Washington back in D.C. said to themselves, we can't directly tax the people. They're going to rebel against us. This is the reason why we separated from England is taxes. We're a democracy. How do we tax people? And Hamilton said inflation. This was literally part of the plan from 1790. And he said, look, here's what we're going to do. we're going to create a United States debt structure, because there were people who said the U.S. debt should be structured like a mortgage, where every 6 months there's a payment made, and part of that payment pays off the principal. And Hamilton said, no, we're not going to do that. All we're going to pay is interest. And if you look at a 10-year note today, what does a 10-year note or a 30-year bond pay? It doesn't pay off the principal. Every 6 months you get an interest payment, then the government rolls it over. And this was part of the plan from the very beginning. Just create debt, roll over debt, never pay back principal, only pay interest. And this was created in 1790s under the Hamilton-Washington administration to figure out that the best way to tax the American people was through inflation. And it has continued. And it has continued not only to the point where like people are like, well, we've never been in this point, or we've never defaulted on our debt before. That is not true at all. The United States has defaulted on its debt at least twice in history. The first time the United States defaulted on its debt was after the War of 1812. We had a lot of debt outstanding. We were unable to meet the obligations. Eventually, we made the debt holders whole, but we did not make interest or debt payments on time, so we defaulted. The second time we defaulted on our debt was in the 1930s, which was FDR. There were large amounts of bonds issued by the United States government, which promised repayment in gold. In the 1930s, FDR said, all of those are null and void. You're going to be paid back in dollars. And that was after, in 1934, he confiscated everybody's gold, revalued it from $20 to $35 an ounce. So that's a $15 increase, 15 divided by 20, 75%. He devalued the currency, therefore he devalued the bonds by 75%. Those are two instances. United States debt defaults. Inflation is the way we tax people. This is the continuation of a system that has been into place for 250 years.
Yeah. And now it'll go digital. Now it'll go digital. Now it'll go digital. In fact, there was one thing I wanted to read going back to that opening clip that I forgot to. But Richard Day was talking about surveillance, and he was saying, look, you'll be watching television and somebody will be watching you at the same time at a central monitoring station. Seriously, you said this a year after 1969. Television sets would have a device to enable this. The TV set would not have to be on in order for this to be operative, so it could do it without being on. Also, the television set can be used to monitor what you are watching. People can tell what you're watching on TV and how you're reacting to it. And you would not know that you were being watched while you were watching your television. Now, I'm saying this from Richard Day, who was working with Planned Parenthood back in the day, who said that he knew what these plans were moving forward, that we would get to this point. And I'm not saying this so that you'll be suspicious of everything and everybody. All I'm saying is it's crazy that this was said back in 1969, and he offered this up. How would we get people to accept these things into their homes? Well, people would buy them when they buy their own television. They won't know, that they're on there at first. And this was described as being known as cable TV to replace the antenna TV. And when you buy a TV set, the monitor would just be part of this set. And most people would not have enough knowledge to know it was there in the beginning. And then the cable would be the means of carrying the surveillance message to the monitor. By the time people find out that this is monitoring was going on, they would also be very dependent upon television for a number of things, just the way people are dependent upon the phone today. One thing that the television would be used for would be purchases. So when all of this was said, keep in mind that it was kind of crazy talk, right? But now as we're moving into digital tyranny, like what Mel is talking about, it's easier to see the little pieces that we become for convenience, that we become sort of, married to, right? And that we like, and that we're not going to stop because it's now a habit. Yesterday, I brought up transactional gold, that the new way is to have the state offer up a place to keep your gold, and they're going to give you a debit card so that you can easily use your gold purchase to buy things. What is your take on that, Mel?
Yeah,
See, I knew you'd laugh. I knew you'd laugh.
Okay. Good luck with them keeping it and not leasing it out and leveraging it and everything else. I mean, this is why the state is generally concerned with gold. This is why FDR outlawed it and made it punishable by up to $10,000 fine, which in today's money is over $1 million and years in jail. I mean, a lot of people don't realize from 1934 to 1971, it was illegal to own gold. And so having control over your own money, having control over, purchasing power is not something that any government, including the United States government, is very fond of. And history tells you that. So, you're talking about the TVs in the 60s.
Yeah,
and
what their predictions
and
were.
a lot of people, like you said, they'll think it's crazy. It's not crazy.
No.
Anybody just has to, I could be talking to my wife about X, Y, or Z, and all of a sudden I go onto my web browser and an advertisement comes. Like, they're listening. They're here. I don't know what they are. I don't know where the app is. I don't know how it's coming through.
Yeah.
They're listening and they're doing it. And it's all going on.
Yeah.
And people that think this isn't happening, or they think it's all about, like I said, Trump's going to make the tariff deals, and there's something bigger going on behind the scenes here. And it's been in place for a long time. Yeah. And it's not threatened at all by whether Kamala Harris or Donald Trump wins the White House. Either way, they've got a plan.
Yep. And I think it's just making sure people see that and understand it. And then we can start to fight it. It's hard to fight when we're fighting the wrong fight. Right. So right now, the parties, right, they're into the party lock, and it's hard to see it. And if you don't put that down and realize what it is, then it's really hard to see the overall plan, I think, because your focus isn't on what they're doing behind the scenes. It's on what's in front of you. And that's what the media places in front of you. And it's important to go back and look at these predictions and look at what people said, because as much as I think it's hard to believe, I think it's amazing that he was nailing down what cable would do, what our bank accounts would do, that housing would become a thing of the past as far as owning, that all of those predictions, this is something that people should really look at, because we've only gone in the direction of everything he said. So do we have well-laid plans? Well, at the time he said, yeah, we do, because I can say these things now because these plans they're going to move forward no matter what. By the way, when I had the dentist on that was talking about the remineralization of teeth, Mel, all of a sudden her ads started popping up on my computer that's open right now. So,
no, I believe it. I see it all the time.
I know. It's insane. It's insane. We'll be right back. Kate Dalley Show. And we'll take your calls, too. I see the phones lighting up. We'll take your calls. 888-673-1450. You can add to this conversation. Be right back.
Well, hello, everybody. It's Annie Cyrus. Welcome to my art studio where all the magic happens. This is the station for painting, and that is the station for all the resin art I do. If you want to check out my art, all you gotta do is go to lutfstudio.com. But I'm sure for this, I hope I'll see you at lutfstudio.com.
Put my love up on no shelf. She said, don't hand me no lines and keep your hands to yourself.
All right. Welcome back. Kate Dalley Show. Yeah, that's our message to government. Welcome back. I've got Mel Mattison. He's still with me, and a lot to talk about. I also wanted to mention that a new flesh-eating bacteria fly is... is coming your way. This is the New World screwworm fly. The only one getting screwed is you guys. So yeah, this is it's considered eradicated since 1966, but it's reemerged as a potential danger. They probably got it out of the army vault, where they keep all the other diseases, right? The Black Plague. Anyway, potential danger. following an outbreak in Mexico, of course. Never here, always there. So always somewhere else. China, Mexico, always somewhere else. That's usually the story. But I just wanted you to know that this is another threat to our food supply. I don't mean to laugh because it's a serious threat, but I also just wanted to mention that it's called the New World, the New World screwworm fly. Okay. They'll come up with anything and shove it in our faces and act like it's something that just popped up. Anyway, all right. Enough of that. Okay, let's go to the $10,000 bill. Mel.
Well, we were talking about digital currency, and I think to understand the control of currency and money, you need to understand this is not something new. This is a process that's been going on for a long time. And there was a point in time when you could do major financial transactions with paper money. There was a $10,000 bill first issued in the 1940s. So just to wrap your minds around that, that's as if there was, given inflation, that's as if there was like a $300,000 bill out there. Meaning you could literally in the 1940s go and buy a house with one single bill and get change, right? I mean, you could say, oh, I want to buy that 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house for $10,000. Here's a $10,000 bill. And they'd give you change. And the reason that the Federal Reserve stopped issuing the $500, $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 bills was obviously because they didn't want transactions taking place outside of the banking system. They wanted you, if you wanted to buy a house, if you were a corporation and you wanted to do a acquisition for $20 million, instead of showing up with a briefcase of $10,000 bills and completing the transaction, everything needed to go to the banking system. What's happened is with, the central bank digital currency, and now they're doing the backdoor on the stablecoin, they're figuring out a way to get every transaction digitally recorded, everything you buy. And I think it's interesting because I was looking back on who's on these bills. So the $500 bill was McKinley. The 1,000 was Grover Cleveland. The 5,000 was James Madison. The 10,000 bill was Salmon Chase, the same person that JP Morgan Chase is named after. And so when we talk about who's really in charge, if you ask yourself, of every U.S. bill, who is on the biggest ever? It's the 10,000 bill. It's Salmon Chase. So when we talk about who's bigger than Ben Franklin or George Washington, well, who's on the $10,000 bill? The same guy that JP Morgan Chase is named after.
Wow. I hope everyone's digesting that. Goodness. Oh my gosh. Yeah, a lot of well-laid plans are bringing us to a destination point that's been planned for a very long time. And like you said, even on the break, we were talking, so I don't remember if you said this on the show or on the break, but we were talking about how every 100 years they have a moment, right? They've got their moment, their reset.
They have their moment. They have their reset. We go through like a hyperinflationary phase. This started in the 1760s, 1770s. It was with the original currency, the revolutionary continental. There's a saying, worthless as a continental. It was basically because, of the literally millions and millions of dollars. I can't remember the exact figures, but it was something like the Continental Congress in 1777 authorized like $500,000 worth of Continentals printed. By the end of the war, they were issuing millions and millions of Continentals every month. So it got to a point where, the Continental was worth 2-3 cents on the dollar. And that was in the 1770s. Then you go to the 1860s, the Civil War, Lincoln runs out of money. He issues the greenback. It's the same sort of a situation. Government can't fund itself anymore. Just print the money, massive inflation. And now, go 80 years after that, you're in the 1830s or 1930s.
We'll be right
1940s.
back. Yep. It's a great point. We'll be right back. Kate Dalley Show.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day, and I absolutely love it, and so will you.
All right, welcome back. Kate Dalley Show. I've got Mel Mattison with me. The book is Quaz, melmattison.com, and we'll take your calls. 888-673-1450. I'll try to take as many of you as I can. 888-673-1450 if you're calling in the afternoon. Happy to talk with you. Mel, I really am dying to know if you are truly living in fear over the new screw you fly or whatever it's called. What is it called again? The screw... what is it called?
Screw worm?
Yeah. Oh, screw worm. Yeah, the screw worm fly. I just wanted to know if you were living in fear of that.
Absolutely. I mean, these are the biggest threats to our sovereignty that we're facing right now.
Yeah.
Is the screw worm fly. I'm sure COVID's coming back. I'm sure there's going to be a very legitimate reason for all of us to get locked into our homes, stopped from going to our churches under penalty of arrest. You know, sometimes.
Yes.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
I know. I'm with you. And I've loved all the points you brought up today. It's just really, really understanding how many little steps are being taken right now. They're not being stopped. And I think if we truly thought we were going to ever eradicate ourselves of the deep state, you'd be trying to stop all of these things, but that's not happening. So what we need is a real awakening to our awful situation right now, to what we're going through, so that we can prepare, right? Because I love the fact that you were kind of analyzing timeframes, looking at Social Security, kind of looking at some of their, maybe what are their bigger plans, to kind of have some aspect of, okay, this is how I can prepare for that. Because your overall message is, this has happened before, right?
Yeah,
and what happened? Yeah.
I think there's almost a metaphor to bring back Salmon Chase, which, you know, it's a figure not many people know about. Like, who is this guy? Why would he be on the $10,000 bill? What did he do? So this is one of the only men to hold very high office in all 3 branches of the federal government. He was the 6th Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. He was the Secretary of the Treasury for Abraham Lincoln from 1861 to 1864 and oversaw the issuing of the greenbacks. And he also was the governor of Ohio and served in the Senate. So, I mean, has anybody heard of this man who was our Supreme Court Chief Justice, a governor, a senator, and a United States Secretary of the Treasury?
He checked all the boxes. Okay. So, wow.
And so what does that tell you? That's the metaphor. And he's on our biggest bill, right? The metaphor is, this is an overarching kind of polyglot type conspiratorial control mechanism that supersedes judicial, legislative, executive. It supersedes individuals. It supersedes federal, state. He was a governor, but he was also a senator and a chief judge. That above the Ben Franklins and the George Washingtons and the Abraham Lincolns and the Thomas Jeffersons and all the other people on our bills, and Jefferson is on our bills. He's on the $2. Like, above all of them, there's Salmon Chase.
Right.
You know, and nobody knows about him, but he's the guy. Isn't that such a poetic beauty? And then he's the namesake of JP Morgan Chase.
Amazing. Yeah. And it's hard for us to link the dots, right? It's hard for us to get big context on it, right? Because everything is so manipulated. And I look at these well-laid plans and I look at their resets, you know, in history, and it is truly amazing to think that there are many people walking around that have no clue and don't want to know. That's the other thing. Why don't you want to know? It's amazing to me that people just don't want to know that there are well-laid plans. In Richard Day, in that expose from 1969, talking about predicting forward, he said very few people really know how the government works. and something to the effect that elected officials are influenced in ways that they don't even realize. And they carry out plans that have been made for them, and they think that they are authors of the plans. But actually they're manipulated in ways they don't understand. But it's on us because people don't ask the right questions. So some people are too trusting. And I have to say that I agree with that statement. I don't think that all people are coming at it knowing how these plans are done, all of these little steps that they take, all in the right at the right time, to get us fostered into these ideas and get us to market, these ideas to us, get us to accept them. But most people do not know. They think they're authors of their own plans. And I think sometimes Trump can be victim to this as well. He thinks, I'm sure that the plans that he has seen are probably plans that aren't real, right? And that maybe he's shown a whole different ending to a plan. And he comes out as the author of a plan, and he thinks he's the author of a plan, but not really. He's being utilized as a tool. And so all presidents are. Look at how the system's worked this whole entire time. All the presidents have been tools of the deep state, right?
They're all dupes. I mean, it's very clear. And they don't know it, and they don't understand it. And they're thinking that they're making these decisions out of free will. It's like, okay, let's imagine that I am the editor-in-chief of the New York Times. And I get there as the editor-in-chief of New York Times, and I'm very supportive of Democrat liberal policies. And I think in my own head, I'm being fair-minded and independent. Well, would I have ever gotten to be the editor-in-chief of the New York Times if I wasn't a Democratic liberal-minded person? Of course not. So
such a great point.
These people are funneled into positions, and then they're manipulated within those positions. And then in their own minds, they're coming up with this stuff on their own. Nobody's coercing them. This is the beauty. This is the magic. This is the illusion of control and power that many of us operate under. I mean, maybe in our own individual lives, we're operating under some sort of an illusion of control, and we're really kind of being manipulated pawns of our circumstances. But the truth of the matter is I'm convinced that even more than the ordinary person, the more you powerful and important you get in society, the more you are manipulated and placed into positions.
Yeah, because you're only thinking about the power. You're not really thinking about and staying in power. I don't think you don't want to analyze because you don't want to know, because otherwise your power would be gone. And, it reminds me of Operation Warp Speed. What you just said was such a great example, because Operation Warp Speed came to us by our President Trump. And I'm sorry, but people better start connecting those dots, because that's what brought us Operation Warp Speed. And now we're being brought digital tyranny. Digital tyranny meaning the ousting of the dollar, bringing in everything on a digital transaction so it can be tracked, monitored, and controlled. That's what's happening in our future. And each president along the way, right? We had the NDAA with Obama. We had the Department of Homeland Security under Bush. We've had all kinds of things go on, right? The housing crisis of 2008 started with Clinton and some of the things Clinton was told to do, and the money going to China and the relationships with China. So I'm with you. They're not going to lose their power by asking, and they are going to think they're the author of it, and they're going to be told that it's the right thing to do because of the end game. This is the end game. Who knows that they're being told a different end game, right?
Yeah, and when we come back, maybe we just talk about who are these secretaries of the Treasury, whether it's Mnuchin or Paulson. It's Soros guys, Goldman Sachs guys, Citigroup guys, Salman Chase, who I just Let's talk about who's really running the show, and forget about presidents that get on the small bills, and talk about the Treasury Secretary that's on the $10,000 bill.
Yeah. And if what we just said makes you angry, that what we just said about Trump, you need to really recheck what you think. Because if that made you angry, you are a pawn of the media, because you shouldn't be angry at that. We should be looking at government as a whole, not locked into the party system. So that's why we always say this show is not about the right or the left. It's about the truth and values and morals and liberty. Because if like I said, if that made you angry, I can't believe they'd say that. And the reason is because you think, well, the left is doing it and now we're doing it. No. Ours is a completely different reason than what the left is doing it for. The left is there to make you emotional. We're trying to bring the reality back of what's actually happening to us right now. Be right back, Kate Dalley Show.
I hear every day about the products you all wish My Pillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard My Pillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use My Pillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all My Pillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard My Pillows absolutely free.
All right. So glad Mel stayed on with me. This has been cool. I love it. Very cool. And please get over and look at the sponsors, help the show out. And I so appreciate those of you who reach out to me and help the show. And thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. The show is so different, and I really appreciate you recognizing that. Thank you. We say things that aren't said in other places, and I love it. I love it. It's so needed right now. It's so rare right now. Mel's on with me, and we were just talking about there's the ostensible reason, and then there's the real reason about why they do things. And you were actually going to mention something. What was it?
Well, I mean, in my study of economic history, especially of the United States, I think a lot of people don't understand the importance of the United States Secretary of the Treasury. Obviously, our first one was Alexander Hamilton. Mm-hmm. After that, we had a couple people. Eventually, we had someone who I've talked about in previous shows, mm-hmm. did kind of a whole profile on him, Albert Gallatin. And he was more of like a, hard money, straight and narrow guy. And there are 2 statues in front of the United States Treasury Building in D.C. One is of Hamilton and one is of Gallatin. And so what we were talking about was Salmon Chase, and we were talking about, who's been in charge of the Treasury, whether it's Hank Paulson mm-hmm. or Mnuchin or all of these guys. And then I'm saying like the banking cartels and, these are the people running stuff. And I think it's like you don't have to second guess it. You don't have to be a tinfoil hat person. So what I scrolled to during the break was Donald Trump's truth page mm-hmm. 4 days ago. Anybody can find it. And I quote, 80% tariff on China seems right, ! Up to Scott B. This is a Donald Trump truth. Okay. Like he's saying 80% sounds right. Scott B, Treasury Secretary, former George Soros hedge fund employee, goes to Switzerland, and it's a 30% tariff. It's up mm-hmm. to Scott B. It's not up to Trump. It was up to Scott B. And then the market soars. So all the points we're making here is basically like, Xi Jinping or Donald Trump mm-hmm. or whoever wants to think like they're the front man. They're the guy that's on top of the newspaper article. Mm-hmm. His face is plastered on the front page, mm-hmm. and behind the scenes, the people making the deals and these decisions, it's quote unquote up to Scott B.
No tinfoil hat required. It's just already there for everybody to see.
It's there, black and white on his Truth Social feed.
Yeah, I always laugh when people try to say I'm an extremist or a tinfoil hat wearer, and it's like everything I've said, most everything on the show, 95% of it, we've been able to prove, and it's happened. So I think the evidence squares with us. I am pretty sure. So I always find it kind of fascinating. The people that usually do not study anything, they love terms like that because then all they can just diminish somebody and it ends the conversation. So I'm always surprised by people who do that. That's a tinfoil hat subject. What you mean? You just don't want to ask questions? So we need to design a T-shirt that says that. Oh my gosh! But I appreciate you pointing that out about Scott Bessent because his arrival is not good. This is kind of horrific. It's a George Soros guy, and no one on our right is saying anything about it. Why not?
Well, I mean, he's just perpetuating what we've seen through all the prior administrations of my entire lifetime, which is these guys from the hedge funds and the big banks. They come in there and they run the treasury. And it's like, this isn't necessarily to rip on Trump. I mean, look, Trump's the president. His job is to be the face. His job isn't to be sitting there in Switzerland negotiating details. But my point is like Trump's sitting there. He's saying, you know what, I want tariffs on China. I think we need to do X, Y, and Z. And then he's saying, but I've also got worries about Ukraine, Russia. I'm worrying about Iran. I've got this. I don't have time to get into the details of it. Scott B., it's up to you. So when these decisions get made and they get attributed to say this is part of Trump's grand plan or he's playing 5D chess, and like, no, that's not what's happening. Trump's giving some very broad blanket mandate, which presidents do. It's not a rip on Trump, like I said. And then it's being carried out by his generals. And in this case, his general is Scott Bessent, as we talked about, former hedge fund manager under George Soros. So that's just the reality. It's not some conspiracy tinfoil hat stuff.
Yeah. And we're seeing this happening in real time. And like we said earlier in the show, he says, I want to get rid of the IRS, but then really all we did was just cut their budget a little. We're going to eradicate all the billions in spending, but we're not really doing that. So it's not negative. People got to get off they need to get off the negative thing. But what you're saying is negative. Well, are you a wuss bag? I mean, come on. This is real life. I don't know how to sugarcoat it. Yeah. I can't change it. I mean, you want us to report on it or not? I would rather have truth be told than somebody just, puff and smoke on me. I don't. Why listen to talk radio unless you're going to get some real truth about what's actually happening, not just being in love with the idea of what you want to happen. I'm seeing that happen a lot right now with a lot of pundits, aren't you? A lot of conservative pundits.
And you look at coming out of that meeting. I mean, what happened, right? I mean, you see stock markets rip higher. Right. Who is that good for? And it's like, well, why does this keep happening? And this goes back to, why I tend to be very like bullish on like what's going to happen in the equity markets. It's because these are manipulated markets. Yeah. These aren't free markets that are being determined based on, price to earnings multiples and things like this. This is flows of capital going into equity markets based upon things like Ponzi scheme, like 401k laws, different things that are being put into effect. You've got hedge fund managers now acting as secretaries of the Treasury, doing deals with China. I mean, this is what's happening. This system is going to continue to propagate until it falls under its own weight. And as I said earlier in the show, I think we're getting close, but we're not there yet. It's still got a little bit of room to run. Yeah. And when I see people get caught up in I can only listen to happy talk, I shake my head because that's exactly why we're in this spot. That's exactly why we're here. Right now, today, our country's in the toilet right now because of that, because we want to hear happy things. We don't want to hear the truth about what's happening. And the truth about what's happening is hard to take. But we don't stand a chance against it unless we do get to that point. So I'm hoping everybody gets to that point where they can see the facade for the grand illusion for what it is. And then maybe we have a chance. And that actually gives me a lot of hope. So I am very hopeful that people will finally figure out this grand illusion, let's hope, and stop playing party politics, because it's gotten you nowhere and it's only gotten us in a worse state of being. And this is why when we look around, we go, we want our country back. Well, we're the ones that allowed it to happen, right? Because we haven't really stood up to it the way we should have. So there's hope. There's always hope. It's just, what do you want hope in? I like the hope in the people, personally. Mel Mattison, thank you. Great couple of hours. Appreciate you staying on. And I'll be back tomorrow. And of course, be faithful, be fearless out there. And just tell the truth. Just tell the truth. It's easy.